Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
What's up, guys? We are back, episode 7, season 4. Talk about it. We're going to wrap things up with these episodes. We'll have a live recap episode here in the near future with founder, CEO of Company Cam, Luke Hansen. But today we're joined by my good friend, Paul Reed. Paul, I don't know if I can rattle off all your titles, but I'm going to try here. So Paul is with Northwest Roofing out in Colorado and Arizona. He is the founder of the Commercial Roofing Academy, and you also are one of the founding members of Roofers in Recovery. Did I leave anything out there?
That's probably the three most important. But actually, well, I'll take that. The most important title is I'm married to Kimberly Reed, and I'm the father of 6 children. So that's probably the most important title. There you go.
There you go. That is well done there, Paul. Because yeah, absolutely that is. And I know you and Kim have a lot of awesome things that you guys are doing with, couples in the industry and lifting up just families and everything. And we'll dive into some of that, but before we get into that, we've kind of been focusing this season of Talk About It on how 2020 went for you, what you were doing, how you got through it. I followed your travels. You've been all over the country. What were some of the keys for Northwest Roofing and Commercial Roofing Academy in 2020 to kind of help, trajectory into a 2021 that's been successful?
Man, I think it actually kind of boils down to a mindset. Almost, there for a little bit, it was almost a survival mindset. But that was really the key. I think everybody kind of remembers, that first day when, President Trump really got on TV and was like, hey, we're kind of shutting down the country and, everyone's supposed to stay home for a while. And, I'm not trying to minimize like 9/11 by any means, but everybody kind of remembers like where they were at 9/11, right? But a lot of people still remember where they were like when the country got shut down. And it was, a scary moment. We literally had a Zoom call. I discovered what Zoom was that morning. That's just something we had never used. And I remember sitting there and I had every one of our employees on this call, and I'm trying to be like strong and, good mindset and go, hey, everything's going to be okay, when I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if things would be okay. Like it was kind of a scary moment. And I think I'd watched like too much Fox News because I was like way down a rabbit hole, thinking we're not going to have food and all these things. But, I only allowed myself literally that day to kind of have a pity party going, hey, listen, this is happening to everybody in the country. And there's a saying that, the best time to really be successful a lot of times is those people that thrive in down times, that thrive during winter. And so I looked at it, literally the next day and was like, hey, I think we could do this. There's still roofs out there. There's still storms happening, and we're going to be okay. And so it was a matter of changing our mindset of going, how do we adapt? What do we got to do? And so just getting that mindset of going, no, we're going to thrive because of this. Everybody's sitting around, they're scared. We're not going to be scared. We're not going to be in fear, and we're just going to thrive. So it started just with the mindset, and everything else took off from there.
That's an awesome answer, and it actually is going to take me down a couple rabbit holes here myself, because how do we survive? I think that was the line you said. It's survival is the first feeling that we had as a business owner. Did that take you back into your early days as an entrepreneur? Because I think every entrepreneur, when they first start, has that feeling of, how do I survive? How am I going to survive right now? For you, did that kind of remind you of, when you first started in the industry and you started as an entrepreneur and you're saying, how are we going to do this? How are we going to survive? How am I going to pay the bills for rent and different things?
Absolutely. Like I said, I think the number was like 62 employees or something that, was on this call. And I'll never forget, like I'm looking at the screen and there's, 62 people on the screen and their eyes are just this big, like looking at me, like hoping that I had something really good to say. And I remember having to go off a camera a couple times because like I was starting to cry because I was so scared and I didn't know what to say. But I had such a fear at that moment, just like when you're starting out, of like, do I even have a job? Like all these guys, they're wanting to know, do they have a job? There's 62 people wanting to know they have a job. And I don't know what to say because I don't know if I have a job. And it was just kind of back then. And it's a great point because it was still that mindset of like, you know what? No, I'm going to get up and I am going to do everything I possibly can to not only survive, but to thrive.
I love it. And it leads me to this question. And I haven't asked anybody this question, uh, but it's one that kind of I've toyed with, and even in our line of work. How do you, as a business owner, not even contractor, just as a business owner, we made so many advances to make our businesses more efficient, more profitable, find different revenue streams. How do you, as the owner of Northwest, how do you position yourself so in 2020, at the end of this year, going into next year, and every year going forward, you don't have to rely on a pandemic to force you to make changes in your business for the better? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because really, I think a lot of businesses came out of the year stronger, better than ever, more efficient, and it was kind of forced because of this pandemic and shutdown. What can you do as a business owner to, hopefully make these changes in good times as opposed to having to wait for a pandemic to, discover we should use Zoom and we should do some of these things?
It was actually eye-opening, right? Like we felt like we were really doing well and running like a strong company and, had all the little holes figured out and holes plugged and these, really smart processes in place.
Yeah.
What had happened to us, it forced us, so we're still roofing, right? When it all happened, like we're still roofing, but we were working from home. And, my first thought was like, is anyone actually going to work from home? Like, because I've seen a study before like that, like an average like person that works 40 hours a week, they actually only, and I don't remember the exact number, but they only work like 30 hours, truly only work like 30 hours. They mess off, 10 hours of the week that, at the water cooler, right? And so my initial thought was like, oh my gosh, if they're at home and they have their kids and all these things, they're probably only going to be working like 10 hours. So I was like, oh, I didn't know what to do. But what we did is we dug into our company, literally every part of our company. We deep dove into it because almost from a lack of not having anything better to do, right? Sadly enough, but it was something we should have did years ago. And so it forced us to look at everything. There, this is an interesting fact. We had something like $8,000 a month in subscriptions of things that we didn't even use. Like someone had bought a program or roofing program or whatever that we hadn't even used for like 6, and they were just auto renewing, right? Since this is company cam, I looked at the company cam account and I had like whatever 50 users, and there was like 6 guys that didn't even work for us anymore that were on there, right? That,
Yep.
Just small things like that you kind of take for granted because you're so busy out like working kind of on the business that no one truly works in the business. And so I think because of this, it forced us to really like understand our numbers completely. Like going into it, I thought we understood our numbers, but after being on Zoom and doing all these things and literally just only could work in the business for a few months, we truly understand the numbers today because of that. And, I think that's why a lot of roofing companies go out of business, because you're like, oh, we're doing pretty good. We just sold, like 8 houses, but they don't actually understand the cost and what the true cost really was, what their true overhead really was. How many subscriptions do you have? Do you have, 18 AccuLinks subscription seats, but you only need 4? like people don't understand those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll throw a disclaimer out there. Paul still is a company cam customer, but yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Paul.
No,
That
no, absolutely. I just meant that we had too
no,
many
no,
people that didn't work
absolutely,
for us.
absolutely. And I think that there's probably this balance of like having that feeling of survival and do I have a job? Are my 62 people that are depending on me on the Zoom call, are they going to have a job? You don't want that feeling, but I think that there's this balance of finding every year, hey, let's go back into survival mode a little bit and let's see what we can truly do better, because if your numbers are good, you might not notice. You're like, oh, we're still making money, we're profitable at the end of the year, things must be going great, we're selling more.
It also taught me another pretty valuable lesson on there. And it was something I knew from a few years ago. So like we really haven't had a really good hailstorm in Denver since like 2018, right? Like it's just, there's been a couple little pockets here and there, but it just really, there hasn't been a good hailstorm. Yeah, granted, you could go out there and grind and, sell 50, 100 residential roofs or whatever, but like for the projects that we do, there hasn't been a hailstorm. So I knew years ago that like, I'm not going to sit around and wait for hell, right? Like I'm not going to sit around and wait for the storm to hit. And so we needed to start, being in the more retail world, because I wanted to make sure that no matter what, if we didn't get any hailstorms in my markets, that I'm good because I have retail going on, right? And so that's going really good. And then COVID hit, and a lot of the retail stuff, the first week of COVID, I lost over $10 million of contracts that were retail contracts, over 10 million the first week, right? And so what all this told me was a person has to, when you have a roofing company, like especially the size that we are, we constantly have to be looking under rocks. We can't be waiting, for hailstorms. We can't completely rely on retail because, like COVID could happen, and then people, they hold back their money. They're not wanting to spend this CapEx money. We still do a lot of retail, but like there's a lot of business that just went away because these commercial building owners, people aren't paying them rent. They're not going to replace the roof. So what it really taught us was at all times, we can't get comfortable and we can't get lax, and we can't like rest on our laurels, that we have to constantly daily be looking under rocks for more opportunities and new opportunities. And I think that looks different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take a quick break here, Paul, and then when we come back, I want to actually kind of combine what you just said there with what you're doing with Commercial Roofing Academy, because I think the two align, really well there, where you're looking under rocks and those kind of things. Because there's a method to your madness. You're not just out there, hitting and hoping. And so let's take a quick break, and we come back with Paul. We'll talk about how, Commercial Roofing Academy can maybe help steer you to the right rocks to look under.
Hey guys, Jordan here with a quick reminder that you can catch up on all of the episodes of Season 4 at companycam.com/taco-4. And while you're there, if you're not already signed up for Company Cam, you can sign up and get 50% off your first 2 months of Company Cam Pro. Again, companycam.com/taco-4.
What's up, guys? We're back. Paul Reed here, Northwest Roofing, Commercial Roofing Academy, and Roofers in Recovery. Paul, when we left, we were talking about, you talked about looking under rocks and almost getting creative to make sure that you have this pipeline that continues to feed itself. And I've heard you talk quite a few times. The story that sticks out to me, and something that I've even applied to my own life, is, when you talked about the new year and you talk about how, come January 1, you used to start at 0 and you said, okay, let's go and figure stuff out. And now you've built this pipeline to where you just are continually working things. And so when you talk about rocks, for you, are those rocks essentially relationships that you're trying to build with, property owners, consulting companies, whoever it may be?
Absolutely. It's all about relationships. A guy, I'm not going to call it luck, but I think, hard work and luck contribute to the fact of, a big storm could hit and you could roll in and all of a sudden, go sell a multifamily job or a big commercial building. But, I would say 75% of the time, those jobs, to be able to get those jobs, you got to have a relationship built with the owners, or the property managers, or the consultants, or the public adjusters, or whoever of the world, that you have to have these relationships pre-built. Looking under rocks means, like, when you drive to your office every day, when you really look from your house to your office, how many commercial roofs do you pass? Literally hundreds. Most people, like, hundreds of buildings that you never think to stop in and start building a relationship on. But all of a sudden a hailstorm hits, then you want to, like, go do their roof. They have no idea who you are. They're talking to 84 other roofers, blah, blah, blah. And so we want to make sure that at all times we're building relationships, because knowing that in our world, it takes a while. It takes a while to get a job. Like, it's very rare to stumble upon $1 million job and sign the contract tomorrow and roof it next week. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, it's literally happened maybe 4 times in my whole career. And I'm talking, I sold, I don't know, $100 million worth of roofs, whatever. So how do you always look under rocks? I look for every opportunity at all times. I kind of hate the acronym of ABC, always be closing. I don't know why. I don't call myself a salesman. I'm a relationship builder. So I'm not, like, always closing, but I'm always looking for a relationship that the most important part of is it's a win-win situation. Because most people, they're when you're a salesman, you're almost looking that you're going to win, and the person that you sold to, they're going to lose, somewhat, 60-40, whatever. I always am very intentional when I'm looking into rocks and looking for relationships, to be very intentional of going, this is a win-win opportunity for both of us, because this property that you own, it's not just a property that you own. This is actually an investment, and they're looking for an ROI on their investment. So I'm always very intentional with being very clear of what I'm trying to do, and saying, this is how I do business. This is how I'm going to work with you. This is how it's going to benefit you. And it's going to be a win-win situation.
Yeah. So I want to take that even a step further. Because I'm a big believer in relationships as well. And I think that's the name of the game in business, not just contracting. It's building relationships and being genuine in those relationships. Would it be safe to say that there's probably, relationships that you've entered into in the contracting world that you felt were going to be win-win, that maybe started out to where, there was a negative ROI and you never did the roof? So you truly won't ever win off of that, but you did provide value to that property owner. Are there those occasions out there that, hey, I gave some service to this person, I thought it was going to be a win-win relationship, it didn't turn out like that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a gamble, right? Like, sometimes to get your foot in the door, you have to provide a value to them. And sometimes it doesn't always work out, like, there's a lot of jobs, and I think a lot of people will argue with me and tell me that I'm crazy for doing it. But, a lot of people's business model, and if it's your business model and you do this, that's fine. It's just not mine. A lot of people, the first thing they do is they meet somebody, and within 5 minutes they go, hey, I need you to sign this contract that says I'm going to be your roofer and I'm going to do this $1 million job for you. To me, that's the most ignorant thing in the world, because looking at it, would you actually sign that contract? Right. Because, Gogan, if you gave me a contract, I just met you. I don't want to sign anything. Like, I don't know you. I don't know who you are. So a lot of times I put in the work and I show my value to begin with. And do I close every one of those jobs? No, I don't. I probably lose 10% of them because I didn't have a signed contract. And so a lot of people be like, oh, that's horrible. But the truth is I probably sign more than most, because I always come in with relationship, and I try to put myself into that owner's shoes and go, there's no way in hell I would sign this contract that I'm going to let this guy that I've met 5 minutes ago do the roof. I'm going to go back to, like, when you and I first met. Okay. It's the same thing. You and I first met, you're selling company cam and you're at all the conferences, you're calling, you're texting, you're emailing. I'd see you at the conference, and like you were like, sign up with Company Cam, like sign here, it's really good. And I'm like, no, no, whatever. It wasn't until you're like, all right, man, let's go sit down, let's go eat a steak, let's sit down. We sat down, had a really good meal, and I got to know you. We sat there for 2 or 3 hours and I got to know you. And I was like, okay, I want to do business with this guy now. What product did you sell again?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's how I try to do business that way. And it's all about relationships, because I'm not looking to do your roof one time. I'm looking to build a relationship and a partnership with you over years, because most people that own one building, guess what? They own 3 or 4 or 10. Guess who they hang out with, and guess who they golf with on Saturday?
I was just gonna say they not only do they own multiple buildings, but they're associating with other building owners.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's the reason I asked that question, because I mean I knew the answer, so it was definitely a leading question. But I think so often contractors or just people in business in general are so short-sighted that they say, if I can't get an ROI instantly off of this, it's not a relationship for me to enter into. And I, it's you've got to take the losses with the wins. And I think your approach is so great that you're saying, I got to show this property owner or this consultant or whoever it is that I'm going to be able to provide value to their, like you said, investment. And that way I'm going to do right by them. 9 times out of 10, when they do need something done, it's not even a thought. It's Paul's our guy. We're going to bring Northwest into this job.
Yeah. And that's the basis of, the Commercial Roofing Academy that we teach at the Commercial Roofing Academy, because a lot of guys, there's a guy, and I'm not knocking him by any means, but another guy that kind of coaches an industry, and he tries to sell like the magic pitch, how to do the magic pitch to freaking, sell a commercial job. I don't have a magic pitch. There's not a magic pitch. What my magic pitch is to come in and build that relationship and eventually develop a partnership that I'm going to be this guy's roofer, right? Like, and that's our basis of the Commercial Roofing Academy of one, how to build relationships, how to show our value, and then obviously like from A to Z, like how do we do production? How do we do our taxes? How do we do our insurances? How do we develop business development reps? So that's the basis of that, of our class.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say. I came out to Denver and hung out at one of the classes, and to me, it's really a two-pronged attack. You have to, build the relationships, do all of those things, but then you also have to produce good work. And through the Commercial Roofing Academy, not only do you give them the insights on, how to build those relationships, how to grow business development reps, those kind of things, how to market, all of that stuff. But then you've got experts that have done all sorts of different roofing systems that can come in and say, hey, not only are we going to help you get to where you can replace this roof, but we're going to make sure that when you replace this roof, you do it extremely well and do it correctly. And I think that's it's a valuable thing. My question for you is, obviously there's probably some monetary gain to the Commercial Roofing Academy, but it's not all that expensive. What goes into that thought process for you to say, hey, what I'm doing is working and it's working really well in 2 regions, but I'm willing to train people. I think the first class I was at, Chase Johnson was there, and Chase is in your backyard in Colorado. What goes into that thought process? Because I think it's a commendable process that you're saying, hey, I'm going to share my secrets with my guy across the road.
No, Chase is an absolute beast. We compete on jobs, right? We do. We compete on jobs. But here's the thing. There's really nowhere that people could go and learn this from A to Z, right? And so the thought was to put this together, and people see us like on Facebook, this year I have like commercial jobs going on, that are kind of in the pipeline, from Indianapolis to Des Moines to Cedar Rapids to Austin, Texas to College Station, Texas to Arizona to Salt Lake, like kind of all over the country. But we just really want to have this industry be better, right? Like that's the whole goal of just getting this industry to be better. And it's easier for me to compete against like a Chase Johnson, that's a great company, that's damn good competition, than some guy that's just doesn't know what he's doing and he's giving away the farm or kind of ruining the industry. So I would rather kind of rise up the whole industry together and just have a better industry, because it's easier to compete against those guys than it is against a bad company. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Makes a ton of sense. Rising tide lifts all ships. And, you don't want to be trying to, be in a bid situation with somebody that's cutting corners and not doing things the right way. And like you said, some of those contractors that don't know their numbers earlier on in the conversation, you might lose 2 or 3 big jobs to somebody that has no clue on their numbers. And it's not good for the property owner, because in 3 years that company's out of business because they weren't.
That's the other thing. And I teach this in the class. Worst case scenario in the residential world, if I screw up a job in the residential world, it's going to cost me about $6 or $7 grand, right? If I got to go in and I completely screwed up the roof, I got to go tear it off, buy new material, and pay the crew to go back. It's going to cost me $6 or $7 grand. In the commercial world, in the multifamily, things like that, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars potentially, and so we want to teach you guys, hey, this is how I already paid the dump tax. I made these mistakes. You don't have to make these mistakes. Here's what you're looking at. Here's what's going to happen if you do that. Here's not what to do.
Absolutely. I love the dumb tax line. I had Jonathan on my podcast a few weeks back, and we dove into that quite a bit of, why pay dumb tax that someone else has already paid when you can go and learn. And so I love the Commercial Roofing Academy, everything that it's trying to do. So kudos to you for stepping up and doing that, because I think, even 5 years ago when I first got into this industry, everybody was so closed. And it was like, I'm not sharing any good ideas. And I think that, some of the, forward-thinking people, yourself, Jonathan, I think of a Heath Hicks. Heath's always active on social media, helping contractors when they have questions. And there's a list that I could name off of these, but I think it's great for the industry as a whole that we're just kind of seeing this lift, helping other contractors do better.
It's right. And I wanted to go back really briefly, like on the cost of that. So here's how I came up with the cost, because I think this is an important thing. I came up with the cost. I put it to $15,000. Okay. A lot of people will go, oh, that's, it's a lot. But here's the thing. The success stories that we have out of the Commercial Roofing Academy, these guys that have went out and sold these jobs that they will tell you they would not have got without going to the Commercial Academy, $500,000 jobs, $1.2 million jobs, a $2 million job. The ROI is phenomenal. Okay. But I put it at $15,000 because this isn't like a money grab at all, for us to do this. I wanted to put it in a spot that was just enough that you're going to feel it, because I want you to take it serious. If I put the fee for like $1,000, I would probably get 5,000 contractors. We could rent out freaking Mile High Stadium, do $1,000, and there would be 5,000 contractors there. And I'm telling you, 99% of them would not take it serious because it was only $1,000. So I wanted to put that amount just enough to where you're going to feel it, to where you're going to come out of here and not go to your typical Tony Robbins conference where you go spend $5 grand and you're going to change the world, and then Monday you forget about it and you're just, that money's gone. So I wanted to put it just enough. And so that's the thought process of that, because I want you to feel like it's an investment. And if you do that and you trust us and you come in and you follow what we say, that ROI is going to be, not to sound like Grant Cardone, but maybe 10x, right?
10x that, baby. I love it. Well, Paul, I really appreciate you jumping in with us today. Before I let you go, I do, when I introduced you, I talked Northwest Roofing, Commercial Roofing Academy. I think it'd be a disservice if we don't, spend a couple minutes talking on roofers in recovery and really, how that's blossomed and taken off here recently. It's the success stories are awesome. So just give you a couple minutes to just kind of give the high level of what roofers in recovery is. So that people that aren't familiar with it can be exposed to it.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for that. So roofers in recovery, that is probably my most favorite thing that I really have going on. So I founded Roofers in Recovery a couple years ago, and actually called Eric, was the first guy I called, Eric Overman. I think I just said his name wrong, but let's just go with Eric O. But I always panic when like I'm on camera. I can't never say his name. It's weird. But here's the first guy I called. So he's been sober about the same time that I have. I'm coming up on 14 years actually next week. But I've always wanted to give back, because there's a part in AA that says you can't keep what you have unless you're willing to give it back. And so I go, the roofing industry has been phenomenal for me, my family. It's saved my life. It's made a great living, right? We get to do all kinds of cool things. How do I give back? Because there's a lot of people suffering with drugs and alcohol addiction. How do we truly give back? So we started the Roofers in Recovery, and it kind of started out as like, hey, let's put in some money and we'll raise some money and let's send a guy to rehab, right? And so like all of a sudden we did that, and we're like, holy moly, that was really cool. Like, how do we grow this? And how do we help multiple people? So what we've done is, obviously we created a foundation with that. It's a nonprofit, and myself and Eric and Jonathan are on the board. My wife Kimberly, we recently added 2 people, Chris Cox and Larry Richards, to the board. So what we do is every Tuesday night we have a Zoom recovery meeting at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And it's really cool. We normally have about 25 people on there, but we have people from all over the country. But probably the most important mission that we have is these guys that we go into rehab. As of last week, we had 4 people that were currently in rehab. And I'm talking, it's a huge blessing, because these people are not only, business owners or even sales reps, but the biggest thing is these guys are struggling with drugs and alcohol, but we're helping put their families back together. They're about to go through a divorce. They're not present with their kids. And because of this Roofers in Recovery, like, people are truly recovering. We now have people that have been in our program and been with us that have gotten over a year of sobriety now because of this. So it's a huge deal. And there's such a huge problem with drugs and alcohol in our industry. And I always feel like I need to say, we're not against people drinking. Like, we go to conferences and hang out with people, and people are drinking, having a good time. That's fine. We're not talking about there's some people that just can't quit. And those are the people that we're here for. And we want to help them, and we want them to recover, and we want them to have a great life, because that's our story. And that's what happened to us. So we want to just keep growing this, and it's getting bigger and it's getting better all the time. And it's truly saving lives. So if anybody's interested, reach out to me, reach out to Eric, reach out to Jonathan or Chris or Larry, Kim, and we'll talk about how you could donate back to that and actually help save lives. So 4 people in last week, the guy got out, and there's still only 3 guys in there, but generally we always have at least 2 guys in rehab at a time. And so if you could add up the numbers, so we've been putting a lot of people in, and it's expensive, so we could use all the help in the world.
Absolutely. Great cause. And I think for me, the biggest thing is, like, it's great to see how you're giving back, but, just when you mentioned, in the contracting world, there's a lot of people doing really well, and just finding your way to give back. And, it has to be so rewarding for you to not only have, been a contractor, been a successful one, and then, you beat addiction, and now you're able to really help others. And so,
when these men's wives call me and are crying and say, thank you, you don't know what you did for our family, like, the guy's coming home now. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, huge shout out to you, Paul. Really appreciate you jumping in with us today. Some great nuggets in today's episode. And we will see everyone next week. And we're going to go live with the CEO of Company Cam, Luke Hansen himself. I'm going to actually try to get some tacos in the studio because, you thought Troy Clymer could talk a lot. Luke Hansen's got him beat by 10 times. So I'm going to get some tacos and some chips and salsa. Appreciate you guys joining us. Paul, again, thank you. And we'll see you guys next week.